Rakan dancing? Come
Is
on.
that dancing?
Move! Actually's doing something.
Is that really? Is that dancing?
You are doing anything, okay?
Hey, I can dance now.
All right. Well, we tried. We tried to make Deficio dance. And honestly, why wouldn't you want to dance? A game 5 between G2 and Fnatic. Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be the final game. We might get another best of 5 down the line, but I don't think this one has disappointed so far. Can I just get a gauge of how entertaining and how fun this series has been so far, Frosk?
I think one of the best discussions that we were having backstage is actually kind of the difference between macro versus micro skill expression. Because we're talking about when you see a game that looks as bloody as these ones, it's very easy to step back and be like, there's no good League of Legends happening at like a higher thought level in terms of like their macro decision making, but it's about the decision making in the intimate moments of the team fight, the clutch moments.
Right.
And from that, this series has absolutely delivered. You are seeing genius level of decisions in terms of micro interactions.
And I can definitely say at this point with how the game is looking, you know, from the side of Riot and also how teams are approaching it, if you don't have the macro doesn't matter. So actually what you're seeing is what you want to see, which is skill impressions in skirmishes that we get 24/7 in these games.
And it's all intertwined with kind of the history and the rivalry of these two organizations. We see some of their epic moments here when Caps was still playing for Fnatic.
And the beard.
Then the World Finals, and I'm sure we'll get a look at G2 as well, relifting their trophy this year and at MSI. Two of the most winningest teams in EU history, a series 3 years in the making, and also the first game 5 in the LEC so far. So now, let's jump into, if at all, what we can predict going forward. And first, let's wrap up game 4. Was this the best G2 we've seen in the entire series?
I think that's an easy yes. It was, what, like a 25-minute game? There were mechanical outplays. There was winning every single lane across the map. There was Akali flipping her way across the map.
Yeah, I think this was the best draft we've seen from G2. I actually think we said this when we saw the draft already. Like, I know people don't have to believe us, but we actually did say this before. We were like, okay, G2 hard won this draft. All 3 lanes can get priority here. They have Elise in as well for Jankos, who can make big plays in the early game. And the only risk was bot lane with the Lux. They tried Morgana 2 games before. It didn't work. Now they tried with Lux, and it worked a lot better because Jankos spent his time down there as well, kind of brute forcing the advantage for G2's bot lane.
And the great point that you made, Deficio, is that this was like the game plan from the very beginning for G2 on red side. It was to be able to find these counter picks so you could create this many winning lanes. And the big difference is that they finally won bots. The Morgana pick didn't work out. The Lux pick finally worked. This is the first time that G2's bot lane performed and the first time that G2 had an early game lead.
And this is without Twisted Fate now, because it's been banned after the first 2 games. So we got to see in this draft why G2 selected red side initially going into the series for a draft like this, where someone like Bwipo is literally sitting being like, what am I playing top here? Okay, I guess we blind Shen. Oh, they swap Akali up to me. I'm down 30 CS. What am I going to do in this game?
And these are is the drafts from the last game?
That means that you can't let G2 have red side again. So Fnatic, they are done with it. They have now moved over into red side, and G2 will be playing on the blue side.
You guys are talking so much about the Rakan priority. Not something we saw coming before the series. Of course, it's always going to be an important pick, but the way it's moved between these 2 teams and in these drafts is truly remarkable.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Rakan, we know, is an amazing support for both these players, Mikyx and Hylissang, at creating these plays outside of laning phase, in teamfights especially, but it's supposed to have a lot of bad matchups bot lane if you blind pick it. That's why we saw Morgana earlier, it didn't work. We got the Lux now, was a lot more successful. Thresh coming in from Fnatic against it as well, getting first blood. So it has been punished now in the early game, which is why I'm not necessarily looking at a first pick Rakan in game 5 from G2.
Tell me about the evolution of the bot lane difference throughout the series so far.
I mean, if you're able to blind pick Rakan and win the lane, you're going to keep doing it because you unlock our 2 greatest Rakan players. Finally, like Deficio said, that's been stopped, so you can no longer do it. And so now it's, what is G2's priority pick from blue side? You would assume it would be Akali, because that's been the plan all along this entire series. That's why it was so important to take away the Twisted Fate. But I don't think Fnatic will let them have it. So if they're not going to priority pick the Rakan, and they're probably not going to get the Akali, I'm looking at the Xayah, because I think Rakan will slip through, and it's about removing that Xayah, because Xayah Rakan is one of the few combinations where Rakan gets a winning 2v2 matchup.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Xayah becomes now the first pick for G2. It's a huge AD carry for both the players as well. And yes, as you highlighted, combines so well with Rakan. And also because now I think Mikyx is in the series. I don't think he was in the series before
No,
Game 4.
he just showed up.
He literally just showed up here, and it was on a good pick for him. Like, Lux used to be a great matchup into Rakan, then she got mega nerfed on support, and now obviously buffed back up with her W. So I think it was a super important game for him, and it does give G2 some tools on blue side, but I still like the fact that Fnatic went red, because I think they have to go away from what we saw in this one here. This was not a draft that was easy to play for Fnatic.
No, they're giving themselves now the best chances in this Game 5, and I like that you bring up Mickey, because in general, I think we've seen an evolution of both teams throughout the series, right? Fnatic came in all guns blazing and really stomped 2 games in a row. And then you really saw G2 for the first time starting to fight back. They crawled back from a deficit for the first time this split to win that Game 3. And in Game 4, they looked like their old selves again. So what does that mean for Game 5 for both squads?
But the thing is they were able to do that from red side when they got the counter picks, when they forced Fnatic to have a lot of those blind matchups and a lot of losing matchups. So now, can G2 actually do this on blue side? So you're looking at very safe, very powerful, dominant blind picks for them. Things like Sylas, things like Xayah, things like Akali, if they get it.
How different is this discussion as opposed to how we had it in the beginning of the day? Because cast your minds back to the graphic, most unique picks in the LEC for G2. The fact that they are so flexible and you don't know what they are going to do. It seems like that factor, at least, has been neutralized to a certain level by Fnatic.
Well, until the last game, yes. Because I think in the first couple of games, Fnatic, with a lot of globals, especially the TF in mid, had a lot of great answers to whatever you want to play on the side of G2. And even in that Game 3, they were ahead. They had the early Baron. They're back on this red side. They can get a good matchup bot lane. And we have seen Rekkles and Hylissang play very well in the laning phase to try and abuse that. And then I think mid-jungle, right now, Nemesis is doing perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And if there's a TF, Corki, or Akali, he's pretty safe and he's pretty stable.
Well, we're pretty close to that final draft. We've said a lot. It's all on the line for these 2 teams for a spot in the final in Athens. So I want to hear from you guys. Who is going to win and why? Who takes that spot in Game 5?
Okay, I don't want to be the person to make the decision who's going to win, but I will say this. For Fnatic, I think their win conditions are don't leave Bwipo exposed. Make sure you get him an early pick so he doesn't have to blind pick something. You have red side, so you should get a nice counter pick for him or get him something powerful for lane, and then grab firepower bottom. You know that G2 are going to fight you bottom, and you know that you can punish it. So make sure that you get a early 3v3 when Broxah comes down to contest G2 there. And I think if Fnatic can achieve those 2 things, they've proven that when they get early game leads, they can close it out.
And you don't want to pick Frosk?
I'm not going to pick.
Okay, Deficio.
I'm picking G2 based on 2 things. 1, mental edge for sure, coming back from being down 2-0. And then I also think the players are playing a lot better individually now compared to the first couple of games. And that was what we looked at as G2's like greatest strength coming into the series. We don't know what the draft is going to look like, but G2 typically do not have problems on blue side. They have enough flex choices to actually get out of it. So I'm giving this one to G2.
The beauty of all of this and of the 4 games we've seen so far is that we do not know what is coming our way. Hopefully, it's a 70-minute game and there's team fights all over. It all comes down to this: 5 games in a row. Will it be Game 5 for G2 or will it be Game 5 for Fnatic? And who is going to the finals in Athens?
Well, we're about to find out, Sjokz. It has been 308 days since G2 lost, 372 days since a Game 5. We've never had one in the LEC, and it has been 757 days since a European team has been able to reverse sweep. And of course, if a team were to do it, this G2 would want to claim that title. They are blue side this time around. What is the draft going to look like, Vedius?
Well, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of similarities in terms of the Qiyana and the Atto continuing to be banned. We're also going to be seeing the Yuumi and Aatrox being banned from the side of G2. But of course, G2 have first pick. So we would imagine the big debate for me is, do they go for the Rakan priority or do they go for the Akali priority?
Exactly. That's what I was asking myself too, because I think Rakan is going to go down. We've seen that having the power 2v2 in the bottom lane is what this series has really been about in a lot of these games, whether or not you can shut down Mikyx or Hylissang. Now, that means you put the Akali as the first pick here for G2, and you bait Fnatic into going for the Rakan themselves. The other option for G2 is they want to pick up the Xayah, because you still maybe want to deny the Xayah Rakan from Fnatic. So you either go for the Xayah or the Akali. I don't want to see a first pick Rakan.
I wonder. So one thing I also want to keep in the back of our minds is that whenever G2 get forced into these Game 5 situations, when the pressure is really on, this is actually when Perkz often brings out his mage bot lanes. This is when he's usually a little bit more creative on what he likes to play in the 2 versus 2, and he almost relies on his old mid lane skills in order to carry them through what is a very important matchup. He did it against the likes of SKT, and I wonder if he's going to look to do it again today.
Ooh, I really don't like this here from G2. Notice Fnatic left Morgana up this time. They're certainly baiting out this Rakan pick. They want to get their hands on the Morgana. They can save it for a little bit if they want, because honestly, G2 aren't going to pick that up themselves. But now Fnatic, they get the Akali. I think they put the Xayah, you steal that away, third pick the Morgana.
You would imagine, though, that G2's quite happy locking in the Kai'Sa for themselves. They could look to do that now. If they wanted to, they could consider grabbing the Sejuani as well. But with the Sylas available, they're going to go back with this matchup. We have to remember that Caps did get solo killed by Nemesis in this matchup when they played up against each other in Game 3. However, in the end, it was G2 that came out on top.
And of course, there is a possibility it could get flexed to the jungle at this stage. Holding that as a maybe, the Kled is locked in phase 1. And now we see if that Morgana gets secured. What become the bans in phase 2?
Oh, see, so what G2 is doing here is they're saying to Fnatic, okay, you can lock in something like the Morgana, you can get yourself a winning matchup in the support role, or you could pick a counter pick to top lane, and they do neither. They immediately lock in their Elise and guarantee themselves a strong 2v2 in the mid lane. A very early game focused jungle pick coming out from the side of Fnatic.
So interesting too, because the last time we saw an Elise ban was all the way back in Game 1 for G2. So Fnatic really want Broxah to have firepower in the early game. We've seen that when he can't control Jankos early, could be trouble, just like in Game 4.
And even though Fnatic got ahead in Game 3 and still lost, it has been Fnatic winning through early game leads that got them their 2 victories this series. We jump into bans. Kai'Sa and Thresh removed from the pool. So let's see what support Hylissang's going to be landing.
Yeah, you have to assume it's Thresh and Morgana here to deny the two good options that Hylissang really does have. And yes, you can go for the Nautilus. I think that's a fine option here if Hilly wants to put his hands on it. But G2 are just saying, Fnatic, you're not actually going to play this.
Well, Hylissang used to be one of the Morgana one-tricks. I remember it's Quickshot that always brings up that stat because he's cast him for so long. But Morgana used to be one of his bread and butter champions that you would often rely on. So I'd be surprised if Fnatic chose not to go for it. Oh, but there you go. Right now, they're hovering picks. We don't know what they're going to lock in yet. They still have some time.
My eyes are going to be on what Bwipo wants to take. They're going to save that for last, almost certainly here. Into the Kled. The Renekton is open because G2 split bans here. There are definitely options for Fnatic, but this Braum down in the bottom lane, much more passive, and yes, can be good at turning around engages on that Rakan, but it's not the Thresh we saw in Game 3 that Hylissang used to absolutely abuse Mikyx early on.
Well, let's see what this final pick from G2 is going to be. Perkz will be locking in the Ezreal. He has only played that once this split, and it was a victory in 1, 3, and 4. Now we find out what this mid lane, or rather jungle pick, will be for Jankos. Deficio was saying on the desk, there are a number of flex picks that G2 can play with, but gonna go back to tried and true, the Sejuani. Jankos has been one of the more consistent players over the course of the series, and he's been very impactful on Sejuani all split long.
Very bread and butter comp from G2. This is very much what we would expect from like an EU meta. We can see that they've gotten themselves a couple of comfort picks as well, and it's just very focused around team fighting. They're going to be looking to play around objectives, very similar to what we saw before.
Wow!
And we see the Kassadin lock in for Nemesis. Kassadin did receive some buffs on this patch, but this is a throwback to one of Nemesis' OG picks.
Yeah, he used to play this a lot. You think back to spring this year, even before he joined the LEC, this has been such a good pick for him, and specifically those buffs, damage to W, that's going to help you so much against a melee matchup against this Sylas. Once level 6 comes around, once Kassadin gets items, there's almost nothing Sylas can do in the 1v1.
It's one of those situations, though, where it's a very scaling-focused pick on what is a bit more of an early-game focus strat. Like when you're going for the Elise, you're going to be looking for plays up towards the top side of the map and maybe even towards the bot side as well. So I feel like that it doesn't really fit in the style with which Fnatic is going for, even though it does complement the 1-3-1 that they do have.
The idea here for Fnatic is that the Elise is going to bridge the gap between early, mid, and late game for this team. So yes, play around side lanes early on. You're not going to have control over mid, but come level 6, things get so much better for this Kassadin in the mid lane, and Nemesis has the late game insurance. If this goes like game 3, where the game goes long and the early leads don't matter, that's where Nemesis will look to take over against G2.
Well, let's see what Nemesis can do. He played Kassadin twice in spring, lost both of those games, but this is a very different Nemesis. This is a very different Fnatic. On the same token, Broxah is on his bread and butter pick. 25 games of Elise in the LEC. 18 wins and 7 losses for Broxah. It is do or die. Win and you are in the finals in Athens. Lose and you face Schalke 04 in Athens on Saturday with a shot at facing the victor. It is Fnatic versus G2. League of Legends is European, and this is what it looks like. Game 5 between G2 and Fnatic. Again, G2 are grouping up and looking to challenge Fnatic in the level 1. Mikyx and Perkz got to be a little cautious as they move down the river.
So Fnatic are setting up for a defensive play in the event that Mikyx tries to do something a little creative with the Rakan, but G2 feel pretty confident to set up this invade because they're going up against the Kassadin. He really doesn't do much at early levels, but G2 have to be careful. They're going to face check here.
Got to be so careful. It's 3-on-2 for the time being. The minimap Rekkles can make his way up. A little bit of damage landing onto Hilly. And doesn't look like much more's going to come. There isn't a huge amount to work with in these early levels, and Fnatic have backed away.
So you can see that the Kleptomancy proc coming in handy there for Perkz as he picks up his first item of the game already. But G2 will have information on where Broxah is starting. Meanwhile, Jankos is going to start on his blue buff. And what are you thinking about these early jungle paths?
Well, when you look at these two junglers, you know, both starting on blue buff, it means no early game ganks, but that's what you expect when you see Sejuani versus Elise. Very much level 3 champions you're going to be waiting for. And what Broxah is telegraphing with this type of path, I think even more so than Jankos starting on his blue buff, is Broxah wants to be up topside around the level 2, level 3 mark for Wunder. Not necessarily to find a gank, although that is definitely a possibility, but mainly because Kled plus Sejuani is absolutely brutal to try and lane against 1 versus 2, so he needs to be up here to protect against that gank, and therefore he's going to go buff into the Krugs so he can hit level 3.
We can hear the fans getting excited for this Game 5. Very divided audience, and those watching at home can now vote in chat who will win, G2 or Fnatic. The crowd seems to be a little bit more vocal for Fnatic right now.
But they also can't make up their minds. It's going back and forth.
We'll have to see how the game plays out. Obviously with Broxah on the Elise, love the energy here in Berlin. I want to keep my eyes on his decision-making and where he goes. As you've already mentioned, Vedius, the 2v2, we anticipated Akali mid being swapped top.
Yeah.
Gonna be a lot of kill pressure.
Ooh.
And the vote is swinging for now.
It's close right now. It's G2. They're not in this region. Of course. You can never escape.
That's not one of the options, guys.
I gave the crowd here such dirty looks, but the fans right now are believing in G2, and Jankos is the first one to show towards this bottom lane. Bottom lane performance has been influential throughout the series, and something Ender you were alluding to during the draft.
Yeah, right now the lane in a very awkward position for Fnatic. Yes, the Sejuani is going to be walking away, but look, it's sort of frozen against them. So Broxah needs to come down here in order to try and break a freeze. Even though they do have vision, they can't actually step up and farm. It's very, very dangerous, and that's why Mikyx is playing so far forward right now. He knows he has the backup and can just stop Fnatic from stepping up.
Mid lane also has push in favor of Caps, and one of the cool things that I really like about Kassadin on the current patch is that his W got 30 bonus damage. That is a lot, and at early levels when trading against melee champions, it can be very effective at allowing skirmishes to go in your favor, and you can see that, oh, Wunder.
Oh, so much damage on the Bwipo. Wunder can't find the kill just yet, and that's how the series started, but in reverse. It was Bwipo putting pressure onto Wunder. Now Broxah is coming fishing in the bottom lane. I'm waiting to see if he can find a Cocoon. Cocoon plus the concussive blows passive from Hylissang is so much CC at this stage of the game and can easily lead to kills.
Yeah, now we're seeing the exact inverse of that bottom lane where it's pushing out. Thankfully for G2, they're much more mobile with these two champions. They can still play forward here, but Mikyx does have to be a little bit careful with Broxah coming around.
Yes, he is, and making his way down. Teleport is available for Wunder and Caps if they were to commit it. But for the time being, Broxah is still fishing for an opportunity.
Yeah, Jankos thinking about making a play towards mid. Nemesis has to walk up to farm, and they have a lot of CC.
All right, they do indeed. That's going to catch with the abscond. Now Nemesis has already blown his flash. He steps all the way forward. Doesn't have enough damage to get the kill. First blood this time picked up by G2. In response, Fnatic are going to turn it around. Wunder completes a TP as mentioned. Mikyx gets a kill into Rekkles. Now Mickey's in trouble, below 100 HP. Stormtoe is not going to be enough, but here comes Jankos. Now Bwipo, he's going to start to teleport in. Bwipo with the TPO. Correction, it was Perkz. It was Perkz that arrived. Now Hilly, he throws up the Unbreakable.
And Jankos just waiting to set up the dive. There's nowhere that Hylissang can go. This is the start to the game that every G2 fan that voted for them was waiting for, and it's Hylissang lambs to the slaughter.
At the beginning of the day, the fan vote was 67% in favor of Fnatic. Right now, it sits at 58 for G2, and I anticipate the moment fans see that play, they will swing their vote. 2,000 gold advantage for G2.
So the fight actually started in mid lane with a 2 versus 1 gank. Then Broxah sees the opportunity to make this gank happen, so a teleport immediately comes in from the Kled. This is a 3 versus 2 that Fnatic think they have in the bag. But with Mikyx just flashing out of range of Rekkles' damage, and then he flashes over committing trying to get that kill, that allows Wunder to pick up the kill and buy time for the rest of G2 to arrive.
So crucial, too, in that play. No teleport for the Akali up top side, so G2 absolutely with the numbers advantage and absolutely nowhere for Hylissang to go. Just a really unfortunate circumstance for them as they overcommit for a play without the global pressure.
Vedius, you talked so much about tempo in the previous game and how G2, they were finding their groove, they're working on their individual performances and that as a team. And now they come into this game with the sort of bread and butter composition, I believe was the words used in picks and bans, and they have a fantastic advantage.
I mean, we definitely don't see many Ezreals in Europe, at least these days. But I do feel that this comp is just very standard in terms of how it's executed. A lot about team fighting, a lot of room to make early game plays, and right now, those early game plays are going heavily in favor of G2.
And it becomes even easier for G2 looking forward in this game to keep extending the lead, because they always have mid control as Wunder using the ultimate to escape. Bwipo can't trade in that lane, but mainly it's about Caps. His ability to move, because he's on the Sylas, can always roam up, and he's on his way right now.
All right, he will meet Broxah though in the jungle. So support is making its way in. Flash is available to Wunder. And there's all the catch.
A flash on Broxah.
Finds Broxah. Broxah will repel up, but what goes up must come down. Broxah running for his life underneath the tower. Caps is able to pick up the kill with the help of Wunder. Now Bwipo running around inside the shroud, trying to stay alive. Caps dashes forward, will not find the CC. Taps on the tower, and he gets out of range.
G2 are just styling on kids all across the map. The lead gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's almost nothing that Fnatic can do. G2 always have more members to fight you. They're always going to be stronger, and they continue to push further and further ahead.
3,000 gold is the lead right now. Turret plates are starting to fall in the top lane. There's support in the bottom lane, which is allowing Jankos, or correction, Jankos is the support, to pick up this Ocean Drake. And look at Caps, by the way. He's already roamed down towards the river, so if any shenanigans were afoot, it would be support for G2. They pick up another early Drake, and Ocean is so valuable at 8 minutes in the game.
And it's these kind of plays from Caps that remind me a lot of what made him so successful at MSI this year as well. The fact that he would just abandon his lane and look for roams, and he saw an opportunity top. He thought they could set up a dive, and notice how they used the remount mechanic on Kled in order to manage the aggro of the tower so cleanly. And then you'll see here, he gets just out of range, only takes a single tower shot, allowing the Kled to then pick up the double kill. Very well executed dive across the two members, and G2 are not slowing down in terms of their pressure.
It's the double fade away right there at the end to get the kill, and you can see all inside of Fnatic's jungle, there's this vision trying to spot out, trying to make it so Fnatic can never do anything against them. See, Broxah probably going to spot it out here, but no, he actually doesn't. It's all over the map right now, and what it means for G2 is that setting up those next plays is only going to be easier. Seeing Broxah on the bottom side of the map, they could then look to set up top side. That's why Bwipo has to back away. He must recall, and without a teleport, he will fall further and further behind.
Oh man, it's such a difficult position for Fnatic to be in. They are so far behind in the final game of the series. Broxah has just not been able to find opportunities, and this control ward will allow Mikyx and Perkz to get away safely.
I do still feel that Fnatic have scaling options in their kit, but talking about scaling at this point in the game isn't really going to do them any favors, as Caps looking for another trade onto Nemesis. Stealing away a Kassadin ultimate is so depressing.
So in the top lane right now, Wunder is building up a freeze to come into him. So Bwipo actually ran all the way down into the bottom lane. There is a ward, though, that just timed out, so he will be able to sneak in unseen. But Fnatic must make something happen. They're down 4,000 gold at the moment. Top lane is unplayable for Bwipo, and this is his only maneuver left.
And of course, for Fnatic, they have shown they can contest and compete with G2 Esports. The first couple of games this series was all about Fnatic. The difference was they were ahead. Now, this is the play that you wanted to see. Ender, Perkz gets tagged by the Winter's Bite, and Mikyx thrown into the air by the Glacial Fissure. But he will find another teammate to fly towards. That's a kill onto Perkz, but Jankos is waiting in the wings. Glacial Prison is available to him. While that's going on, Wunder's in the top lane.
Yeah, Caps is also on the roam here, so they're just going to delete Broxah underneath the tower. Caps still running over. Jankos is so tanky. He's just buying time, waiting for the rest of G2 to show up and
the
fight.
quickness comes in and locks Rekkles down. G2 are not done yet. They are looking for Bwipo. Bwipo dashes in and hasn't got the damage just yet. Jankos crashes over the wall. Caps kills Bwipo. 10 kills to 2 and a 5,000 gold leads.
Every member of G2 is styling on Fnatic right now. Ender talks so much about how Fnatic needed to force that play bot. They had to make something happen with Bwipo's time, investment all the way to the bot side of the map. And yes, they make something happen, but it ends in disaster as G2 pick themselves up 4 kills.
The unfortunate reality for Fnatic now is they win none of their matchups. They win no 2v2, no 3v3 on the bottom side of the map. Every lane is a lost one right now, so they must come at you with the numbers advantage.
Okay, Caps, can he get away with this? Level 9 to the
And he
6
does.
and 7. And Rekkles and Hilly didn't have the ultimates or the flashes to chase. As it stands, Mikyx is 3-0-3 and Bwipo is trading with
He has
Wunder.
ult.
Bwipo's in so much trouble. Charge has been used. Bear trap on a rope. Will pull Bwipo back with teleport comes down.
He wants this fight as
He
well.
Wunder does. He needs Skarl. Skarl is coming back and Nemesis
In the
realizes
bot
he
lane.
can't do it. G2 are not done yet. They get themselves another kill in the bottom lane. Hylissang goes down. True Shot Barrage comes out from Perkz. He kills Rekkles. Perkz, in his second split as an ADC, wins the All-Pro #1 role. And he has got 5 European titles under his belt, the most of any European player. And is on the cusp of qualifying for another final.
This is painful to watch. Fnatic had such a convincing start to this series. They were dominating every single early game. And then coming into game 3, they were the ones with the game to lose. G2 found a way back, and with that win, the momentum suddenly swung in their favor. Now they keep looking for fights, but G2 is there to answer.
Yeah, they do. Mikyx escapes
He's still alive.
again. 3-0-5. Every first pick Rakan has gone on
Here comes
to win
Kled.
the game. And Mickey's first pick was this game. Wunder jumps in. The bear trap goes the wrong way. Hylissang goes golden with a stopwatch. Stand behind me is used. Stays alive. Hylissang escapes for a few seconds longer before he gets taken out by Jankos and Sejuani. It's a double kill for the War Pig. And the middle tower will fall as well.
G2 just end up getting everyone else, and turret plates have not even fallen yet. They have 14 to their name as that one goes down. Everything in favor of G2.
Diving Bwipo as
They
well.
absolutely are. Bwipo's trying to do something. Perfect execution is available to him. He jumps back in, manages to find one. Wunder is now trying to put the damage back. Hex Drinker keeps him alive, and he trades with Wunder. Correction, Bwipo. The tower is just on the verge of falling as well.
It is so rare that you see the 15 turret plate dream, and G2 are so close. In game 5, when it all matters, G2, the one we know, the team we know, has shown up, and they're not here to play, they're here to dominate.
G2 Esports have secured 3 wins in a row. It just took them, well, potentially 3 wins in a row. It just took them 2 losses before they could start that run.
10,000 gold is the gap at 13.5 minutes. Bwipo has half the gold of Wunder. Like, it is unbelievable how hard Fnatic are getting smashed in this early game. They're trying to find a pick. Will they be able to kill Mikyx? Not this time. He still remains deathless. Now Wunder on the re-engage.
Okay, now, this isn't really the time for quick stats, but I'm going to do it anyway. The quickest game in EU history was 18 minutes and 31 seconds. Can G2 beat that record? Infernal Drake, for the first time all series, is secured by G2. Caps is going to steal perfect execution. Hylissang's running for his life, and the charge is used defensively. 16 kills to 3, 10,000 gold lead. The tower in the mid lane on the verge of falling. And you really, really have to look at how Fnatic started and how they've ended. There is a lot of positive to take away, but they have been outclassed individually this game.
And this series, it was all about winning the early game, and Game 3 was the game they should have won. Game 3 was Fnatic's, and they lost it. G2, with some crucial team fights around the Baron, were able to turn it around. That gave them their mojo back. Now, with almost everything in their favor, they're diving under the towers.
Yeah, they absolutely are. That's another kill onto Hylissang. And now Broxah is underneath the tower. The tower simply is not even enough. Rekkles, gets caught by the Mystic shot the moment he lands. Nemesis is running for his life, not even level 11. 18:31. That is the quickest game in European history. The inhibitor turret is falling, and the inhibitor should fall as well. 12 seconds.
14
to
plates.
13. 14 plates secured. They just missed one. G2, if they find any more kills, you know they are brazen enough to go for the Nexus. They won't do it now. 13,000 gold lead. And what a fantastic series we have had. And it is just starting to fizzle somewhat.
Yeah. It's just like it. So, I mean, the thing here is that what we saw was in the first two games, I think the Fnatic did play exceptionally well. I think that they shut down G2, and I think they ultimately punished a lot of the mistakes that we saw G2 making. What we then saw throughout the series was that G2 slowly, individually returning to form, progressively getting better and better and better. And now we're at a point where it feels like that they're making very few mistakes, and every time Fnatic tried to force something, G2 just immediately shut them down.
G2 Esports, in my mind, have become the most dominant organization in European history. They just set another record at 15 minutes, 11,680 gold. They speed ran the finals against Origin, an organization with huge history.
Oh, they're going for the record.
They have Rift Herald.
18:31. Do Rift Heralds dance on Fnatic's grave? That's the question. The Rift Herald is going to be charging onto the Nexus turret. I wonder if G2 know that they can break their own record. The boot hits the Nexus turret. The quickness is being thrown down. G2 Esports on the cusp of making another final. On the cusp of crushing Fnatic in Game 5. They've traded top laners. Wunder and Bwipo are down. G2 are not done yet. Nexus turret falls. Caps has caught Rekkles. G2 Esports, their dominance was questioned this series, but they are looking like they're going to shut down Fnatic.
Yeah, they still don't have the minion wave yet, so Fnatic are doing everything in their power to fight back. The death timers are so low, and they've got the shutdown on towards Caps. Nemesis, can he get more?
He's looking for it. Rifthawk is available, but he doesn't have a huge amount of mana. Maybe only one more Rift. The Nexus will survive. The siege was cancelled. And at 17 minutes, Fnatic have a busted base and what feels like no hope.
I'm not going to try to sell you back into this game just yet, but Fnatic just got a shutdown on Nemesis, and with the super minions coming into mid lane, that's a lot of experience they can pick up if they can buy themselves more time. But in this fight, it is Bwipo that gets broken almost immediately, but then Mikyx goes so deep under double Nexus towers, it's an immediate shutdown, and Bwipo wasn't quite taken out, so he's able to trade down on towards Wunder, and then it's this turn from Caps where he instantly blows up Rekkles, where everything looks golden for G2, but they have no more minions anymore, and Fnatic were able to turn it around onto them.
Let's be real. That was a power play. That was not high quality League of Legends. That was not G2 like executing some high level strat. That was G2 flexing their muscles and saying, we can break our own record right now.
And that was G2 breaking the mental of Fnatic before a potential rematch in Athens next week.
Actually, that's right, because it doesn't really matter who wins this game. The real loser is Sjokz. Because they are going to get so much revenge. You know, Fnatic has showed what they can do in the early game. And yes, obviously, the odds are incredibly, incredibly slim, right? And it's going to be multiple G2 mistakes that will allow Fnatic back into this game. And let's see what's going to be happening now.
Well, they're going to give it a go.
With an actual TPO, it's simply too late to the party. Teleport coming down now from Wunder. Charge is available. Bwipo is now out of position. While that's happening, Caps is pushing into the base. It's still a potential pre-20-minute win. Knockup will catch Rekkles. He's running for his life. Here comes Caps. That's so many members dead. Bwipo has respawned, but there's no minions to work with to push the final turret.
G2 don't have minions, but I don't think they care, quite frankly. They just want blood here from the side of Fnatic, waiting for the escort into the base. Bwipo does not stand a chance. That's the ace for G2.
G2's dominance has been truly challenged, but they were not conquered. G2 continue to rule Europe.
G2 successfully make the reverse sweep a reality. They were pushed to the brink. In Game 3, they had to hold the line and make the comeback happen, and they do so. Just barely, but they manage it.
Look at the smiles, look at the happiness. For the first time in 757 days, a reverse sweep has happened in Europe. The second fastest game in history in Europe at 19 minutes and 38 seconds. G2 were pushed to breaking points. They were down 2,500 gold by the only other team in Europe that could contest them. And Fnatic, unfortunately, were not able to close it out.
I mean, what was great about this series is that it demonstrated that G2 are not impossible to defeat. They can be challenged, they can be rivaled, and that there is an opportunity to beat them.
There's a lot of fans here today.
But we also got to see what peak G2 does look like, and when they are playing in form, what they can do against the likes of a Fnatic.
This is what peak League of Legends looked like. That was the call from MSI. This is what peak competition for G2 looks like, and it is Fnatic from Europe. Fnatic versus Sjokz next Saturday in Athens. Tickets are still available if you want to come watch, and if they win, please, oh please, give us another series like this on Sunday.
It actually just blows my mind that we have the possibility of seeing 5 more games like this. These two teams fought tooth and nail. I loved seeing the different adaptations game to game, how these teams fought so hard in the early game, because neither of these teams gives up easily. They will keep fighting even when they are taken down. It is about the confidence and just going all in early on. You either win big or you lose big. And these teams just want to throw everything at it.
I'm really curious as to what, if we remove Game 3, what the average game time is, because I feel like that neither of these teams, when at a deficit, just slowly lose. They don't wait for that perfect opportunity. They try to make an opportunity. And often, yes, it results in just snowballing the game even harder, but I feel like the players' mentality is, you know what, this game's over, let's just get into the next one. And like, skirmishing, being proactive is what both these teams are all about. And that's why it just felt like that, even though we went to 5 games, it was still a very quick best of 5.
Oh, absolutely. And this just makes everyone else fear these two teams even more. Looking forward to Athens, as you said, Sjokz, looking forward past that to the international stage. Europe has top-tier competition, and you must fear them.
Absolutely the case. Just a reminder that Fnatic are not guaranteed a world championship. They do need to make some more championship points. If Sjokz win the whole thing, it could put Fnatic into the gauntlet. Definitely stick around after the winner's interview. We will have Perkz and Jankos joining Sjokz on PGL, so do stick with us. Before that, we're going to...
So, the average game time was
Damn it, I wanted it.
25, I believe, 0.7 minutes.
Okay.
So, 25 minutes is the average game time.
Game 3.
No, they removed Game 3.
You need to add this. See, this is why I need the stats.
Wait, but that's literally what he asked for,
That's what
Trevor.
I asked for. 25 minutes was the average game time. But like, think about this, right? And I think what's really important to recognize is how these teams will come into international competition as well. When at a deficit, they won't just concede, they will fight you and they will challenge you. And you need to be prepared, because on the one hand, it can just snowball the game even worse for you.
Yep.
But on the other hand, these teams will fight their way back into a game.
Wow, since you fluffed the delivery, do you want to set us up for Kill Player of the Game?
Well, you guys have 3 votes available to you, but you have to go to LOL Esports on Twitter. You have Wunder, Jankos, and Perkz as your options. I think it's going to be a very difficult one to choose from, considering how lengthy the series was overall. But I think
Game 3 is the decider, and it was Wunder for me, so huge in that match turnaround.
I think like in the games that they won, Wunder was the biggest factor.
Yeah.
So I think I would edge towards
I mean, the games they lost don't actually matter for player of the game
I
because
suppose that's
they
true.
lost. It doesn't help them. I'm just saying the facts.
Thank you very much. That was a fantastic series. Thank you to Fnatic and to G2. And for more, let's hear from Laure.
Thank you very much, Quickshot. Thank you, guys. And thank you, Mickey, for joining me. Congrats on making it to finals.
Thank you.
That was not easy. So please explain to me the shift in this series, because how do you go from losing 0-2 to almost setting up a new record in LEC history?
Yeah, so last split, it wasn't that interesting in the playoffs, so we needed to make it a bit interesting. And we've never had a reverse sweep before, at least me, personally. So I wanted to know the feeling, how it feels to reverse sweep someone, because I got reverse swept. Didn't feel so good, so I must feel really bad for Fnatic right now. And yeah, I think we just adapted well throughout the series. And even while adapting, we still saved some strategies for next time.
All right, well, I hope you guys have some things prepared still now. Tell me, people would expect that G2 would pull out another crazy pick from what you guys can have in stock. So why did you go for a very standard draft in Game 5 when you could have surprised them?
Well, we're saving the spicy stuff for next week. We just knew that if we just play standard, we're probably going to win. Because I think after Game 3, we just kind of knew that we're going to win it. And yeah, the Game 4 and 5 were like kind of stompy. So yeah, we didn't feel the need to pull something weird out. And yeah, well, maybe you'll see it in the final.
All right, well, game-wise, what made the difference in the end? Because you both were playing standard drafts, so why did you win?
I think we just won because we're better at adapting. I think we're a really good team in best of fives, and well, mostly was when we banned their global champs that they were really used to, so Yuumi, TF, because they really like to play those and just be all over the map. So when we banned those, it was like kind of easy to play, or easier to play. So yeah, I think that was the biggest part, I guess.
How would you rate the performance you had today? Was this top-tier G2 for you?
No. I think we still have like a long way to go to be like really good. Right now we were like kind of like in the middle there. We were just, yeah, we weren't maybe giving it our all during practice at least. But yeah, I mean, I think they just played pretty well. At least the first 3 games they played well. Then they kind of crumbled for 4 or 5. But also think we didn't play that well. But I guess we did find the Game 4 and Game 5.
You may have a rematch next week, so we'll see about that. I want to come back to what was said in Euphoria this week. Youngbuck said that Fnatic was creative enough to challenge G2 when G2 is ahead. Today, you guys played from behind 2 games. So tell me about playing from behind versus Fnatic.
So yeah, the first 3 games when we were playing from behind, it was really hard. And well, we just messed up a lot of team fights. And they just got a lot of free Barons from it. We also weren't that well prepared in draft, or we just were overconfident in what could work. For example, the Mordekaiser didn't work out so well. But yeah, I mean, it was hard to play from behind. I think they played it pretty well, but they were kind of bad at closing it out. I think they could for sure close it out. But I think we also found some good fights. I found like a decent flank, and we got a Baron steal and stuff like that. But yeah, I think if you don't have TF to force engages on mid lane, then it's a bit hard for him to play. So yeah.
Let's talk a bit about the Mordekaiser pick, because obviously leaving Yuumi open, you knew they would go for it. You had an answer. I guess this answer worked in scrims before, so why didn't it work today?
Yeah, maybe in scrims, not everyone's just a Garen Yuumi expert, because I think Fnatic are like the best Garen Yuumi players in the world, it looks like. So it was really hard to play against it. For me, when I was playing Pyke, it was also really hard for me to play against like TF and Nocturne, because TF can always reveal me, and Akali can always get revealed in her Shroud. So it was really hard to play that game from draft. But also, yeah, we weren't used to such a good Garen Yuumi. In scrims, it was much easier.
Nice. Would you say that some of your weaknesses were exposed today?
Yeah, you could say that. We were kind of bad, or like, honestly, I played really bad, and in lane, I died like, I don't know, so many times, and I was really inting it. So I guess that could be a weakness, that I'm just really bad in lane. And yeah, we were just like dying all over the place. We took like bad fights. So I guess we showed some weaknesses, yeah, but then, well, we kind of picked it up and adapted well throughout the series, so I'm not too worried.
All right, you say you inted. I heard some similar stuff, let's say, on social media. So who picked it up for your inting today? Who was the rising star of G2?
I think, so game 3, I think Jankos played really well. Sol Nash as well. I mean, actually, everyone played pretty well. Oh, Wunder and Kled, oof. And then game 4, Caps, after he killed them 2v1 mid, we knew the game was over. They couldn't play after that one. It was like, he broke their ankles. It was like really crazy. And then game 5, I think I played pretty decent. I think everyone played really well, so yeah.
All right, well, awesome to hear. Now, last question for you. You may face Fnatic again in finals next week if they win against Schalke. What should you be mindful about facing them next time? I know you mentioned global.
Yeah, I think
like
we should be mindful of global champs, that they do pull out a lot. But yeah, I think after this series, I don't think they can mentally recover till next week.
You think you broke them?
I think we broke them.
Ouch. Well, we'll see about that next week eventually. Thank you very much, Miky, for joining me.
Thank you.
And to wrap up this week, let's send it over to Sjokz for the post-game lobby. Take it away.
I'm tired, man. Let's have some fun.